Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to Ophelia Does Magic. I am your host, Ophelia. Today we're going to be talking about a tag that's been going around. It's not new, but my channel is, so we have a lot of tags to get through. I am doing Kellyanne Maddox's tag, the Happy Witch tag. So if you want to just hear me chat about my current feelings about witchcraft, things that make me happy, things that just make me proud to call myself a witch, keep on watching. I'm going to get started right now. Okay, I have my laptop down here, so if you see me glancing down, it's because I'm looking at the questions. Question number one is, what makes you happiest about the fact that you are a witch, parentheses, right now? And I think the biggest thing that I like about witchcraft, and I'm trying to come up with an example that doesn't run into the other things, and a lot of stuff is going to bleed together, and I'm coming up with these answers on the fly as she intended. One of the things that I like about witchcraft, or being a witch, is leaning into the earthly experience and not shunning it. I think there's so much of the spiritual world is about releasing yourself from the shackles of everyday life, or trying to get away from everyday life because it's distracting somehow, or there's just a lot of religions out there, especially the more popular ones, that talk about human life as on the one hand, it's like you're perfect, everything is perfect, God's vision for you is perfect, and then on the other hand, you are filled with sin, there's things trying to bring you down, like life is going to be suffering, if you don't do this right, you're going to have like an eternal issue. And I feel like there's something about paganism, there's something about witchcraft, there's something about the particular set of beliefs that I am going through and I'm letting to, exist in me, that give me permission to live my regular life and just be better as a human, like as a fully embodied human, someone who is like really living my experience, relishing in the world, relishing in my experiences with others, relishing in my intellect, relishing in my, emotions and my feelings and my intuition and my psyche and my physical world, my career, my life, my health, my happiness. I don't think that we shy away from those things in paganism. And it depends on the flavor and type of paganism, but at least for me, I know all of these answers are going to be, at least for me, I am finding it incredibly refreshing to allow myself to live and to live happily and to live with abundance and to be better and to do better, but also to not guilt myself, to not feel shameful that I have great things and that I want great things and I want greatness. I think, I grew up with two very opposing ideals where on a spiritual path, you want to ascend, you want to enlighten yourself, you want to get away from the rat race, you want to get away from things that tie you to the physical reality, you want to get away from relationships that keep you attached, you want to, all of those things. And I'm not saying that attachments are good, like being overly attached to stuff is good, because I don't think that's good either, but I just mean that, there's a certain, it's on a sliding scale, and I feel like being raised in the particular flavor of Buddhist household I was raised in, the attachment aversion was like very, very high, in general. It was like, even to your loved ones, the attachment is not, we should be very separated in general. That's not the right word either. I don't know. I just mean to say that it feels like I can live more fully. And on the other hand, well, I don't really know if that's fully true, but what I mean to say is like there was a huge emphasis on not being overly attached to anything, right, in this world. Everything in this world can be taken away from you, and even though that is still true to this day, and I still do believe it, there was something about the deficit-based training, the duality that we always find in other religions, whereas in what I'm practicing now, it feels like we're trying to overcome the belief about duality, right? That duality does not really exist in spirit. And then on the other hand, in real life, in consensus reality, I was raised to be a go-getter. I was raised to be type A, high achiever, just having a lot of really intense energy, doing things with 110% intent, reaching out to people, making connections, like doing the work, working overtime, like just being, doing the most. And I love that part of myself. I love the fact that I am an extreme go-getter. But now I feel like the thing that makes me happy about being a witch is that I can embody both of those parts of myself and not feel bad about it. I feel like I can consolidate different parts of me without feeling like there is, cognitive dissonance. And I feel like that is a beautiful part about growing spiritually. I can accept that I want things and I can let them go and I'm not attached. I can accept that I am simultaneously very, very outgoing and very driven and very, I know what I want, I know how I'm going to get it, and I'm going to do it. And at the same time, if I don't, that's fine. And so being able to accept life, living life fully to the way that I like and the way that makes sense to me, that has made me really, really happy, especially happy as of this moment right now. which practice do you tend to enjoy most out of your witchcraft and why? Okay, this has to be tarot, because it was the thing that started it all, of course. I mentioned it in my, if you haven't watched my Keeping Only 10 Tarot Decks tag, I have talked about how tarot was the start of it for me. It started the whole thing because it wasn't originally supposed to be a witchcraft thing. It was just supposed to be a tarot thing, and it was just supposed to be for self-help, secular, very nice, psychology-based self-help. And here we are today. And it's important to me, one, because it establishes a routine for me. So it gives me a really nice in for my spiritual routine. And I just said that. It gives me a nice in to practice. When you are developing a craft or you're developing a spiritual practice, you need to make time for it consistently. I'm not going to say every day. I'm not going to say that I force myself to do anything every day. For me, it's just about consistency. Am I putting in what I think is an effort that I need to benefit from it? And it's not prescriptive. It's not like if I put in a number of hours of ritual work, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z benefit. It's more just like, I do it because I know that it benefits me. It benefits me to have meditative time. It benefits me to have a moment of gratitude. It benefits me to have a moment of silence, to think about my goals, to get clear on, my actions and how I've behaved and how I've spoken to people. And tarot is a beautiful way for me to really take stock of my life, to take inventory of my life, to do the reflection and the deep, heavy, I call it the heavy lifting in my brain, like the mental heavy lifting, to do all of that stuff in a way that is confined. You have a very specific prompt or a very specific query or something, to have it be guided, right? Because you have the guidance of the cards, you have the guidance of the little white book and authors and other people. You can refer to others, so there's a little bit of structure in there as well. So it's not completely free flowing. It's not completely like you spiraling into your own thoughts. So tarot for me is extremely functional and incredibly useful, and it's sentimental as well. So it's all those things. And on top of that, there's the very, very real sensorial experience of art, right? Experiencing, touching, playing with art, playing with, beautiful, luxurious cardstock, whether it is that linen texture, whether it is the laminate texture, whether it is the rose petal finish, which is really like soft touch vinyl. There's something beautiful about the sensory experience of tarot, and you can make it as elaborate or as simple as you'd like. Something for me really simple is throwing a deck in my bag and doing it at work, like literally at my table, spending the time in the morning, the 10-15 minutes in the morning to pull a card and just think about it and to write some stuff down. That is meaningful. Laying out a tarot cloth, an altar cloth, lighting the candles, calling in the quarters, calling in the elements, it can be as dramatic as that as well. But for me, because it is so flexible, because it is so practical, it is just an indispensable practice in my life right now. How have you changed in positive ways as a result of practicing the craft? And I feel like for me, the biggest thing that I can tell is my sense of patience, my sense of understanding, and kind of being able to be a better person overall, I would say. There has been a very clear distinction in my life. The point between when I started in earnest and the point before that. Before that, I feel like I was, not that I was angry at the world or that I was belligerent per se, but I definitely did, I had an ego about me, and I didn't think that I was egotistical, which is the other part. I just felt like I was different from other people, or I just couldn't understand why modern society was the way that it was. And to an extent, I still feel that way. I mean, if anything, stepping into this neo-pagan spiritual new age thing has not helped my case at all in making myself one of the common folk, because it's another niche thing to get on a high horse about. But the biggest thing is, instead of looking at people with disdain or looking at people why are you so foolish? Why are you guys not doing things to help yourselves? Now I look at people with more patience and more compassion, and I'm more interested in not judging people for their actions, because I now see the importance of understanding that everyone has their own path, understanding that things unfold in different ways for different people, and we are all connected. That is a true positive change. When you can look at people who you would ordinarily be triggered by or angered by or moved to say hurtful things or to do actions that are harmful or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that I would have hurt people, but I definitely would have said some stuff. I used to get into arguments online with people who I didn't agree with, and because I thought that what they were saying was hurtful. And in many ways, maybe it is hurtful, and I'm not saying that it isn't. It's just that now I'm not making judgments about them as people. I'm more looking at their circumstances, or I'm looking at whatever they're dealing with, and coming at them with a sense of compassion, or a sense of I hope whatever you're going through that makes you feel this way, I hope you can overcome it, instead of just spewing just vitriol, and anger, and trying to use the anger to stop that. Using fire to fight fire doesn't typically work. And I think I was doing that up until recently. And when that happened, the change was very palpable. And that is the positive way that it affects others. And I feel like that's kind of the next question. So maybe we'll switch that. That's kind of like the effect of others. I feel like I'm a kinder person and I'm a more patient person, and I think that has helped other people. Okay, so that was probably a better answer for the next question. Now that I'm thinking about a positive way that I've changed from the craft, okay, I have one. I think I can empathize with people that I could not empathize with before. And I said that in the last example, but let me be very clear about the kind of empathy that I'm feeling. One, I am feeling empathy for those who are religious, who are spiritual, and who have strong religious beliefs. Because even though I was raised Buddhist and I believed it because I was raised in that household, and when you're a child and you're not necessarily given the choice to believe in something, you just follow it, and that is just your framework for life. I never really. It never made my heart sing. It never made my soul sing. It never like vibrated with me in a way that I felt in my bones and my cells, right? This thing, I feel deeply in I call it my soul seat. I deeply feel it there. And now I identify with something that I never identified with before. It's almost as if, I don't know, like for instance, let's say you were, you suddenly found yourself a part of the LGBTQIA community because your partner, you happen to like have a partner that was same sex, and like you were never attracted to that kind of person before, and the cards folded in such a way that now you are part of this community, and you never engaged, you never even gave a passing thought to identifying like that or for it to be part of your life. And now it is. And you get a whole new world opened up to you. I know that was a really specific example, but that's exactly what it was. Like I never really conceived of myself as religious or spiritual or having to believe in anything religious or anything spiritual. And so now that I feel it so strongly in my bones, it's opened me up to a whole new world of people who believe that. And the reason why it's helped me is because frankly, a lot of the issues that we're seeing politically in the US, a lot of us can trace it back to religious fundamentalism. I think there's a certain rift between cultures and between belief systems, and a lot of it is religiously based. At least I think it is, or it's like religion and culture are so combined, and there's a lot of religious trauma that Americans have suffered, and it's a very complex history that we have here. But basically, prior to this experience, I just saw them as kooky idiots, and they should have been, smarter. They should have freed themselves. They shouldn't have been sheeple. Like the way that they were talking was incredibly ironic because a lot of those Christian fundamentalists who are extremely radical, and I know it's not all of them, but a lot of the loudest people are the ones calling everyone else sheep. And so I just found it really ironic when I was, not spiritual. And I was like, it is so ironic that you as a Christian or whatever who is told to believe that God works in mysterious ways and not to question anything is now saying that we all, people who get vaccines and whatever, are all sheep. It was a very strong and unmovable perspective that I had, that now that I am part of that spiritual camp, now that I'm part of the camp that believes strongly in religious freedoms and the right for me to do things based on my belief system, it's just interesting to have that perspective. I'm not saying that my belief systems have changed at all. It's more just like I have a window and a designation attached to me that I didn't have a year ago. And so getting used to that is very interesting. Sorry, I don't know if that answered the question in a way that was comprehensive or comprehensible. But basically what I mean is I'm a better person now because some of the distinctions that I now carry as a person have opened me up to communities that I never really felt empathy for before. And actually, I pretty much ignored the signs for a very long time because I just, one, it wasn't something that I was looking for. So it wasn't that I even knew what signs were. I didn't even know what deity work was. I didn't know what any of these things were. And two, I got into this, remember, from a psychological self-help perspective. I was coming into the craft looking to fix my trauma with my family, not to become spiritually enlightened or to get on a new age path. That wasn't my intention. And so I was specifically filtering out a lot of the magical stuff, a lot of the quote unquote magical thinking, regular magical thinking as in the fallacy magical thinking. I was trying to weed out all of the psycho-spiritual stuff because I didn't want any of it. I really wanted all of the self-help therapy-based stuff, all of the shadow work and the reflections and the archetypes and the integration and all of the basically practical real life stuff that doesn't really have to do with magical workings, right? And so when that happened in the beginning, I really wasn't picking up on any of the signs. And in fact, I was flat out rejecting them as a part of, because it wasn't part of what I was trying to do, which is fine. But eventually it got to a point where, I started picking up on certain things here and there. And I was like, well, listen, if you are so real, if you are such a, such and such an archetype and you're such and such a deity and you are here or whatever, and you're working with me, I know you've given me a lot of signs. At one point I had like a check manifest out of nowhere. At another point I had, I don't even know, like just lots of things happen individually that I just, like I have a direct deposit schedule at work that comes in every 2 weeks. And one day I randomly got paid $800 because I wanted to sign, and that's a pretty strong one. I had a couple others, like little everyday signs. Synchronicities don't have to be like as dramatic as an $800 check. But the biggest thing was, and that check came from my workplace. It wasn't like a random blank check landed in my lap, right? But the weirdest thing is, one day, finally, when I was in ritual with my husband, who was practicing at the time as well, I said, listen, if you're going to be here, I want you to create something in reality that is objectively quantifiable, measurable, and something that is a tangible representation of your presence here, because I don't want to be able to wake up one day and think that it was a memory, or that I imagined it, or I overinterpreted it, or whatever. So it has to be measurable, it has to be observable, it has to be touchable, it has to be tangible, and it has to be traceable to you and verifiable by my husband. And, it should be a very clear sign. And that was just it was a lot. I probably should not have demanded that. In retrospect, it was probably very, very rude and uncouth of me to do that. But my patron deity is real nice and real patient. And a quartz manifested for me literally out of thin air. I would go get it, but I have roommates outside and I don't want to go interrupt the whole filming thing. I'll show it one day. It's this tiny little pyramid quartz. It's like an aurora quartz or something. It's like sparkly. It's rainbow. It's not mine. I literally didn't buy it. I didn't own any crystals at the time, and it has like a little crack in it, and I literally have not seen it in my life. And I remember asking my husband time and time and time again, did I buy this? Did I get this as a gift? Is this something that was here before? Like, it was just surreal. And it came up out of nowhere. I believe it ended up under my bed, like under our mattress. We clean it out regularly. Like sometimes stuff falls under the mattress, and I found a little crystal. And it was not something that I had purchased. It was not something I had ever seen before in my life. I had thought of everything, could it have been someone who moved into the unit before us? No, because it was a brand new unit. Could it have been a friend who brought it over and left it? No, I have like 4 friends, and all of them are very, very much so like either very, very Christian or very, very atheist, and neither of them are into metaphysical crystal stuff. So no one had crystals. I was like, maybe could I have purchased it and I forgot about it? No. Maybe could it have come in a gift of purchase? No. Like, there was literally no other explanation for that. And although that wasn't a spell or ritual per se, I think there was something about my energy from the beginning that was very demanding and very clear about what my my boundaries and parameters were going to be. And if I was going to do this, it was going to have to feel very real and very palpable to me. And I think that is pretty amazing. It's pretty incredible. I will say the $800 check out of nowhere was also pretty incredible, because that is also pretty tangible, and that is also pretty real. But the quartz manifesting out of thin air, I think, is more like bizarre, because the check comes from my workplace, and I still don't know like what it was from. I'm not going to ask them. I was going to ask them like why they paid me. But the quartz, that was from nowhere. It wasn't like someone gave me a quartz or I found one on the floor, and it was, it wasn't a synchronicity where you yourself are an agent and you pick something up, or you find something, or something flies by and you're the one receiving it. Like, it was just out of nowhere. Like, so that was really bizarre to me. What are you most looking forward to in the craft, and why? Oh my god, I'm looking forward to so much. I think the biggest thing is just how much I'm going to fucking do. Like, I feel it. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my soul. I know that and this is going to sound like so weird and arrogant, but I've never felt this before. I feel like I'm going to be, I feel like, and I know that I'm powerful. I feel like, and I know that I can do whatever I really try. Like, if I give it an earnest try, and I put the effort and the work in, and I study, and I get all my stuff together, and I focus, and I meditate, and I do all of the steps, I know I can achieve awesome stuff. And so it's a matter of time, it's a matter of practice, it's a matter of diligence. You don't just get to do, like powerful, like earth-shattering magic on day one. I understand that. But just from the results that I've had so far, just from the practice and the routines that I've established so far, I've already made a lot of progress. And so for me, the most exciting part about my future is going to be becoming even better. Like, it's one of those things where you start to see progress in a skill, and the more you progress, the more you are moving further and further from the place that you started. And the ceiling is really far away. In esoterica, the ceiling is basically non-existent. There's no limit. And especially when you're talking about something like an eclectic practice, when you're learning from a lot of different things, you're synthesizing. One of my favorite parts about witchcraft, one of my favorite parts about being a witch, is that they don't discourage you from learning more. And I think that is one of the things that I find a lot of major religions, or at least like the more prominent ones, a lot of them preach, like, you are to be single-minded in what we practice here. You are to be single-minded in listening to our teachings, because our teachings are prophetic, our teachings are unique, our teachings, we are special and they are not, right? There's a very us versus them mentality in a lot of major religions in the world. And I feel like the thing about being a pagan, the thing about being a witch, you are encouraged, not just told to, but you are actively encouraged to learn more, widen your perspective, cast a wide net, understand exactly what it is you're doing, and even to not be superstitious. I mean, that is the one thing that I think was the biggest misconception for me in magic and religion and spirituality, was that witches and magic and all that stuff, like, it sounds superstitious, but one of the most prevalent things that I've heard is not to be superstitious, but rather to be very judicious about the results you're getting, not having magical thinking, relying on evidence, relying on accurate note-keeping and archives to really go back and analyze exactly what happened and where, and to try something new if it doesn't work. I mean, the curiosity and the willingness to allow your disciples or your practitioners or whatever to learn more, to feed that curiosity, and to really allow themselves to sate whatever questions they have with not one central tenet, but whatever fuels them, whatever answers their questions, whatever lights their soul on fire. That is beautiful to me. And it just shows how much trust and how much mutual respect there is. I find not that dogma inherently is bad, and not that, top-down legislation or top-down lectures are inherently bad. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into that right now. But I think that the willingness to allow people to come to their own conclusions or to do their own research, just for their humor, right? Like, even if you're going to come to the final conclusion that is the same, which is that, like, you don't harm others because it ends up harming yourself anyway, just the fact that they allow you to try those things, or paganism and witchcraft, I'm going to say them interchangeably, the fact that you are allowed to experiment for yourself to see what works for you, even if, like, the end result is likely going to be similar, that is the mark of what I find is to be incredible. Because I just think it allows you to do more. It means the sky is the limit, right? For me, I am currently interested in so much. I'm looking forward to getting to a point where I can read for people and really connect with people and be an important part of people's lives, to make important decisions, or to come closer to their highest selves, or to live a more authentic version of their own lives. I would love to learn more about astrology. I would love to learn more about different types of esoterica, to really understand the history and the lore and human civilization and all these different things that I basically didn't have the time or the energy or the bandwidth to care about before. And I'm also excited to see my mental health improve even more over time as I develop more strategies, more coping mechanisms, more X, Y, Z, and the other to help me understand and negotiate life in a way that is healthier and better and leads to self-improvement. What do you like the most about the witchy community, online or offline? Okay, so this is interesting because I'm new to it. I'm not super into the community yet. There are certain online communities and niches that I've been a part of since, 2005. And this is not one of them. This is one of them that I joined in 2020, basically. And we're at the end of 2021. So it's been like a year, maybe a little bit over than a year. But one of the things that I have noticed, which is beautiful, is what I mentioned before, is that there's a little bit of everything, and there's an encouragement for you to taste a little bit of everything. It's like a buffet, you can taste a little bit of Gardnerian Wicca, you can taste a little bit of Christian witchcraft, you can taste a little bit of non-denominational or atheistic witchcraft, you can taste a little bit of hearth magic, chaos magic, green witchcraft, I don't know, like there's a million cosmic witchcraft, pick a card readings, group readings, individual tarot, psychic mediumship, Reiki healing. There's just so much. And of course, certain things are closed, and you're going to respect closed practices because they're not for you. But for everything else that is open, I mean, the online community, the resources that we have are disgusting. I mean, like, think about the privilege that we have today as people who are trying to learn things of the occult or things that are difficult to find in the mainstream. I mean, it is not difficult anymore. I mean, I just have so much appreciation and respect for those people who make content, who make educational content, or, to share their knowledge with us because they want to. And it allows us to learn. It allows little witchlings like myself to absorb everything like a sponge. And because I can taste a little bit of everything, because there's so many different people out there and everyone is doing their own thing and everyone is learning from each other, I just think it creates a very beautiful, it's almost like a living ecosystem. I mean, it is a living ecosystem. It's a living, breathing organism with all these different parts, all these different cogs. All of us have a little place here, even the little baby witches who don't really know what they're doing, who are just sharing their experiences. I mean, I watch people in my seat too. You know, people who are doing it for a very short amount of time, people who are very clearly unsure about their path and what they're doing, and they're bumbling along and they're just trying to figure things out along the way. Even people like me, we have a place too, because I think it creates a sense of camaraderie. It creates a sense of like, oh yeah, I'm doing that too. So that's part of why I'm doing this. It's because I don't have the answers, and I don't have experience. But I don't think that should stop me from sharing what I'm going through right now, because it is helpful to watch other people say, like, for the first time I did this, or I learned this from this book, and I'm still figuring things out, and this is how I'm organizing stuff, because all of us contribute to an environment that teaches everyone else. It takes a village, you know? And so I think that's the best thing about the online community, which is that there's something for everyone, and everyone has its place. Everyone has their place, and you're encouraged to go out and explore. It's like a playground, or like a giant village filled with lots of different things and lots of different corners and alleys and back streets, and I can get lost. It is amazing. Personally, I also I'm local to Salem in Massachusetts. And so offline, I have to say, being so close to one of the most witchy places, you know, it's like Salem and Glastonbury, I feel like, are the two that you hear about. You know, that is amazing. I go pretty much every weekend. Recently, I've been taking a pause because of the depth here. I've been trying to like not trigger my spending habits. And I feel like going to Salem too often is usually a very easy way. It's a really quick recipe for disaster, because I'll just go in there and be like, ooh, tea, sparkly, shiny, incense, blah, blah, blah. But being local to there means that I have access to a ton of resources, a ton of really amazing experts, people who know better, shopkeepers, materials. I mean, I just have an excess of abundance and opportunity, and that is something that I'm grateful for every day. How do you envision your craft evolving positively in the future? I envision it just getting better. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a specific vision in particular. I just feel like one of the things, okay, actually I do have a specific vision. One of the ways that I think my craft will get more positive and even better is I feel like it's going to become more social. You know, I not that I live like an entirely isolated life. I mean, I work a regular job. I'm a teacher full time, so I don't get a lot of adult interaction in my day. I usually work with children. Chomping at the bit to be like an incredibly social butterfly. So I feel like one of the biggest and most exciting parts about my journey and what I can do to improve is the interactions and the community and the relationships that I might be able to develop with others. I just think that being a witch is so beautiful because it can be a very solitary practice. It can be very nourishing to the soul and to the mind and to the inner temple and all that stuff. And you don't have to speak to another soul. It can just be, you know, you in silence, learning about yourself, learning about world, learning about life. But it can also be about deepening your relations to others, understanding that we as a world population are connected, you know? So I would love to focus a little bit more on others, to really deepen my relationship with others, extend my relationship with others, to just kind of have more of a social piece to it. You know, I find that I can become a little bit reclusive just because I can be so absorbed in stuff that I kind of completely draw myself into it fully, and I use all of my energy and I turn it towards one thing and I neglect all the other parts of my life. So for me, I think one of the ways that I can improve and I can see some positive change is if I find connection, if I find a way to make real life change, real life connection with other people. That would be amazing. How do you keep your witchcraft practice happy, healthy, and productive? Okay, this is easy. Do what works and don't force it if it doesn't work. And yeah, there's two parts to that. On the one hand, do what works. It depends on what you mean by works. For me, my idea of what works is what keeps me a emotionally and spiritually grounded and balanced person. And it wasn't until I had a regular meditation practice, and it wasn't until I regularly started doing tarot like twice a day, like either morning and night, or doing a couple of different spreads, like specifically pulling for certain cards and having a routine set in stone, that I realized how off kilter I get when I don't take that time to allow my mind to quiet, to allow myself to really unpack the things that need to be unpacked in my head. You know, basically it feels like a computer, right? And all of these different files are kind of clogging up, all the different programs and drivers and random little bits and bobs of preloaded data. You know, people are borrowing your computer, people are saving files, taking screenshots, whatever, and you never really take the time to clear all the junk out. You never take the time to fully do a reset or to filter out all the garbage and all the junk. You don't need to you need to clear your trash. That is what I feel like meditation and tarot does for me. And you know, when I have those things that are productive and healthy for me, that feels good. When I want to take a break from it because it feels like it's too much, I do that because that feels good. It feels more balancing. Sometimes you tip the scales to the point where you're too spiritual, right? And you're kind of leaving, your feet are not on the ground, you're not like in consensus reality. So sometimes taking a break, going on vacation for 2 days and really just being on vacation, and then letting those scales tip back and then coming back to the tarot practice, sometimes that is necessary. Sometimes I really want to do spell work and, I really lean into that. But let's say, at one point it just doesn't really feel like the spell work is serving me anymore, or it feels like my ideals or my desires have shifted. Okay, so then I would stop. I think there's a balance to be struck between diligence and doing something because it allows you to become better, and doing it in a way that is not self-serving. And at the end of the day, spirituality is for you. It's for your own internal improvement. And I constantly remind myself, I don't have to do something if it doesn't benefit me. Like, this is not a job. It's not a job that I need to perform a certain amount. I need to do a certain number of meditations a week, or I won't be able to feed myself, or I have to write a certain number of pages, or I won't be able to maintain like this roof over my head. Like, it's not that serious. I mean, it is incredibly serious work, but it's not serious in the sense that I need to act as if there's a gun to my head and I have to do it. It's happy and healthy because it is up to my own discretion what I do. And I do it because it feels good. I do it because I like it. I do it because it's joyous. I have tarot cards that are beautiful. And so when I use them, I'm overjoyed. I'm like so excited to touch all my cards and to smell them and to use them and to hear the sound of the shuffling and to write with my beautiful fountain pens and my beautiful notebooks and to see all the colorful pages when I'm done. Like, that is inherently satisfying. When it is not inherently satisfying, I don't do it. I don't force myself. And usually, if I give myself a little break because I'm overwhelmed or I'm getting burnt out, when I come back from that break, I'm feeling better than ever. I do several intensive workshops. So sometimes there's workshops where you're supposed to do something for 1 week and then you do something else for the next week, or you do like this, that, and the other, and the homework. And I do those. Those are intensive, but they feel good. Like it's like an exercise that feels good. You push yourself through the squats. You push yourself through, whatever. And you do it because you know that it's a positive type of strain, but it's never going to be distressing. I think that is an analogy that Ariel Gatoga uses. He says that it is just like, I realized that analogy that I pulled out of my head was actually not from me. It was from one of my, like the teachers that I follow online. Yeah, he likens it to exercise. It should feel good. It should feel like you're putting a little bit of pressure on yourself. There's a little bit of strain, but it should never feel painful. If it feels painful, you're doing something wrong, right? So that is what keeps me happy, healthy, and productive. It's just remembering to keep a light touch, doing things because they feel good, trusting in the process, and adjusting if things are not working for me, and that remembering that it's inherently beneficial, it's inherently fun, it's inherently good for me, and that I love it. What is one piece of advice you would share with other witches to help them make their path more positive? Well, I don't really have I don't really have advice because I am on my beginner's path. But I guess if I had to share one piece of wisdom, it would be listen to what you are hearing. I feel like I heard so many, and I don't know if this is great advice, but at least if it were me, if I were trying to tell like my former self from 7 months ago, I would have said, every single time someone says to trust your intuition, or to trust that things are changing, or to trust that you're going to have a transformation, or, to trust that you have guides, or literally anything about emotions, I would say, just listen, just believe it, just entertain it. Like, what is the worst that could happen if you're wrong? If you're wrong, then you tried something in earnest and it didn't work for you. And then you can move on and you can say, listen, I tried the whole witchcraft paganism thing and I found it to be a bit woo-woo, and I tried all this stuff and I tried the rituals and I never really got any great results from it. So, it doesn't really work for me. And that is like the worst that could happen, If I had to be more specific, I would say, allow yourself to feel. I don't know how many people are out there watching this, but personally, again, I mentioned I really was not a spiritual person at all. I wasn't one of those like angry keyboard atheists, but I was pretty close to being, extremely like, if it's not logical, it's not valid, like one of those people who I very strongly embody sword energy, like I'm a double air sign. I think it would only be worse if I were a triple air sign, but everything had to have a logic and a reason, and nothing that couldn't be rationally, like if it wasn't rationally explained, it should have been corrected. Like if you feel something and it isn't rationally explicable, then you should fix that. That was basically the mentality that I had. And, when you go into magic and you go into the craft with that mentality, it can be a real handicap. And I don't want to say handicap. I think my very, very strong air sign is great. But there is something to be said about allowing yourself to feel and not to block off your emotions. I feel like there was something about me that stunted my emotional growth. I didn't accept emotions. I didn't accept them for myself. I didn't accept them for others. if people told me their feelings and I couldn't understand why, the logical thread between why they were feeling the way they were and why they were acting the way they were, I would just see them as this inferior being who could not control themselves. And okay, like sometimes people do things that are pretty uncontrollable, and it could be ridiculous in real life contexts. But I mean, in a spiritual way, if you're going to go down this path, if you're going to be a witch, if you're going to be someone who is very intellectual and you like that practical side of yourself, you like the fact that you need to be proven certain things, I would say just allow a little bit of that intuition to flow. You know, like turn on the tap a little bit more, because that's one of the things that I'm starting to lean into. And as soon as I leaned into it, I started to see a lot of changes. And I'm not saying that like the intuition tap has to be like fully on and the logic tap has to be fully closed, right? They're kind of not opposing forces, but they're complementary forces, and they're not necessarily the same force, right? It's different elements. So the logic has to stay, because if we lose the logic, we lose the sense of reality. We lose our grounded thinking, and we start to get our heads in the cloud, and we start to see connections that aren't there, and we start to use that magical thinking fallacy again, right? But if we don't have imagination, if we don't have, faith, then you can't do this. Right? Then you can't have a robust spiritual practice. The whole point of a spiritual practice or a faith-based practice is that it is, you have to allow yourself to believe things, right? You have to allow yourself to be open to things that are not necessarily very easily proven in real life, or rooted in your traditionally practiced five senses. So that would probably be the advice that I would give myself, is to allow myself to open up to experiences and to feelings that I didn't feel very much before, and to not dismiss them as child's play, or not to dismiss them as immature or ridiculous or uncontrolled, because that is definitely how I saw emotions before. I definitely saw people who followed their intuition, followed their emotions as illogical, as childish, as people who didn't have higher thinking. And that was just really egotistical and really messed up with me. And so I encourage you, if you are anyone, miraculously, if you are out there watching and you identify as a very intellectual person, if you're a very logical, rational person, and I still think I'm logical and rational, it's just that I allow a little bit more intuition to come into my life. I allow a little bit more empathy and compassion to come into my life, and I just make room for that. You just turn on the tap a little bit, you make space for it. You're not sacrificing any of your logic, you're not sacrificing any of your rationality, but you're just accommodating a little bit more. And I think that has changed everything. Being able to accommodate a little bit more faith, a little bit more imagination, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more emotion, having a higher tolerance for emotion, having a higher tolerance for watery things, that has made me a much better person, and probably a much more skilled magician. But that's besides the point. It's besides the point. The biggest part is I feel like I'm a better person overall, Okay, those are all the questions. I feel like I've rambled quite the while. But those are my answers. I feel like I gave honestly pretty eloquent answers for the fact that I ad-libbed this entire thing and I didn't even see the questions beforehand. We will see in editing if it was clear. It was a long, rambling one. Thank you so much for sitting through this. I know I can get a little bit long-winded. I love you guys. Thank you so much, and blessed be.